Hi, I'm Julie Schaefer, host of the Finding Love Summit, and today I have with me Jayson Gaddis. Jayson is the founder of the Relationship School, an impact-based company dedicated to helping individuals, couples, and teams work out their differences in order to have indestructible relationships. He is an author, podcaster, speaker, and personal trainer for relationships with a focus on interpersonal conflict and connection. He has a new book coming out in early October called Getting to Zero: How to Work Through Conflict in High-Stakes Relationships. He's been married to his amazing wife since 2007 and has two beautiful children. They live in Boulder, Colorado. And when he doesn't live and breathe this relationship stuff with his family, he pretty much gets his ass handed to him. Welcome, Jayson. It's so nice to have you here today.
Thanks, Julie. Glad to be here.
Yeah. You run the relationship school and you work a lot around conflict. And it sort of occurred to me that maybe we need to figure out before we start talking about what to do about conflict is what is conflict? Can you define what you mean by that?
Yeah, totally. It is a rupture, a disconnection, or an unresolved issue between two people.
Okay. So it's more than just, I don't like what you just said.
Right. And it's
What
not
do-
just an argument. It can be kind of a long period of silence even.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I think we've all had
Yeah.
that experience if you've been in a relationship for
Yeah.
any length of
It can
time.
be stressful, right? Depending on
Yeah.
who you are.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, being ignored is probably worse than being yelled at for a lot of people.
Exactly.
So what do we do? Like, can you talk to me a little bit more about like how do we manage conflict? Um, you've got a
Yeah.
book coming out about that, so I think you probably covered the bases in your book.
Do. Yeah. I think the first step is we have to change our mindset about conflict. You know, if you're listening, you can just think, what do you conjure up in your mind when you hear the word conflict? You know, a lot of people, it's like war and fighting and bad stuff, right? And that makes sense. And I want to reframe it as an opportunity for people that conflict is a doorway, and it's really the only way to get to an extremely empowered partnership, for example, and to have any kind of deep relationship. You're going to need to go through conflict and wrestle against each other, you know, and the differences between the two of you to get to a stronger place. So if you want superficial relationships, I think you can successfully avoid conflict and compartmentalize and kind of put it, you know, somewhere else and keep pretending things are fine after a few days. But that's going to get you a very limited relationship.
You know, that
So if you
sounds
have the right mindset, basically, is like that's where we start.
yeah, okay, I like that. So it sounds like what you're saying is we need to go deeper. So if we're just dating somebody, of course, it's going to be all fun and games initially,
Yeah.
and that can go on for a long time.
Yeah. A year, 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And but then and you can be fooled into thinking, oh well, we've got a great relationship because there's no conflict. Oh well, we never fight.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is really that's a superficial relationship that we're going to need to go deeper, and that involves wrestling with each other.
Yeah. And we might feel like we have a very deep relationship when we're in that early stage, the honeymoon stage, as a lot of us know it as. And it can feel really deep and very meaningful and profound. But that's okay. And that's whatever it is, whether it's superficial, deep, whatever you want to define it, it's not going to last. It's a fantasy to think that you're not going to have conflict in a long-term partnership. That's just ridiculous. So I try to help people say, like, I remind them that no, like a real relationship, a really good one, past the 2 year mark involves conflict. So you must get good at it or you won't make it further.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. I've often told my clients who are early in a relationship that in order to know if the relationship is going to make it, you have to have gone through the stress of a conflict to see how the two of you work it out.
Right.
Yeah. Um, you work with teams a lot, also, not just individuals. And so I imagine a lot of discussion comes up around leadership.
Yeah.
How do you talk about that in terms of conflict?
I mean, I definitely, any leader I'm working with, you know, it's the same conversation. It's like, look, if you want to be a powerful team, like if you were coaching a football team or a basketball team or a band, you know, the program is like, look, we're going to not get along sometimes, but we have to learn to work together. if we want to win or accomplish our goals. So a good leader has this kind of mindset and is like, yeah, conflict's not a problem. We just need to get good at working through it and respecting each other's differences and still being a team.
Okay. And then that to me sounds like it translates really well into parenting.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my wife and I, we have two kids, 10 and 12 at the time of this recording, and they're amazing. And it's partly because adversity and conflict are welcome in our home and fighting is welcome. And my wife and I argue in front of our kids. We disagree in front of our kids, and we repair in front of our kids. And then we make our kids work it out. We don't sort of say, you guys go outside and figure it out. And they hit each other. And then one of them calls down and, we look the other way and hope it goes away. We actually, no, you sit down, look at each other. Let's figure this out. And it's relentless. And a lot of parents don't have time, or they don't have the capacity, or they don't know how. And so that's all understandable. But if we want to teach our kids how to navigate a conflictual world, it starts at home, and it starts with our modeling. And then we can also be the facilitator of conflict between siblings, for example.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Do you find that sometimes there are just people out there who like being in conflict and seek it out and make it hard on other people?
Probably, yeah. I mean, those are more on the sociopathic probably spectrum, but I do think, if we got behind the most deranged person around, getting, high off creating conflict or fighting with people, like an MMA fighter, for example,
Mm-hmm.
if we looked into their history, we'd probably see that it comes from maybe a traumatic childhood or some difficult, things that they went through. And it's just how they coped, right? It becomes a strategy on how you deal with your environment.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. So, but that could lead to problems in relationships because people aren't going to want to be around you.
Yeah. I mean, look, we can't, I say this very clearly in the book. You can't work through conflict with someone who's not willing.
Mm-hmm.
People ask me all the time, well, how do I work with my partner who's abusive? And I'm like, you don't. You move on.
Yeah. 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 There are no magic words, is what I say to my clients who are struggling with that issue. It's like they're trying to sort of contort themselves into something that gets a positive response from the other person. And you try to manage the conflict in a kind, respectful way. But if that's not working, you're limited in how well you can get the other person to be on board if they don't want to be on board.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. People get stuck there. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all well and good to talk about conflict between you and another person, but there's also inner conflicts we go through. Do you talk about those too?
I do. Yeah. I talk about it. The way I teach this is that if you and I are in conflict, Julie, and I decide to not share everything, like, I'm like, well, Julie kind of gets angry and, she might shut down. And so I'm just not going to bring it up. If I do that, which is avoiding conflict, right? It's like avoiding conflict 101. I just stuff it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take it inside. And I make all kinds of valid reasons why I'm not going to tell you, because whatever bad thing's going to happen. Well, now I'm holding that and I'm not being truthful with you. And so now I have to withhold myself from you, and I'm hiding something. So that's an inner conflict right there. I just created an inner conflict by avoiding conflict with you.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And kids do this.
Yeah. Go ahead.
All the time in their families of origin. We all did this as kids. We feel like we can't be ourselves. And so we stuff our truth and we create strategies to keep the connection going. And that's an inner conflict. It's an inner conflict between our strategic self and our true self. And then this plays out in adult relationships all the time.
Yeah, I can see that.
We don't want to rock the boat, so
right.
That's the inner conflict.
Right. But I can imagine, like, some people, they know that they're touchy about subjects. They get triggered. And so they do, if they're working on this, they might be in a phase where they're saying, okay, well, I'm not going to expose you to my trigger because it's my trigger. Which sounds like avoiding the conflict. Like, what do I do with the triggers?
Yeah, I'm not an advocate for that. I'm an advocate for be messy
Be
and be
messy.
yourself,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
Just give yourselves permission to be messy and real. And messy doesn't mean abusive. It doesn't mean we condone hurtful behaviors, but it does mean like stop trying to be perfect and not upset people. And let's just be our messy selves, because in a long-term relationship, you can't hold on to that forever. It gets very hard to like be fake or wear a mask in a partnership. Like your real true colors are going to come out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just assume let's get them out on the table, and so we can learn how to work with them.
Okay. And then be messy with your partner. So like when they're triggered about around something, because we all have sensitivities and
Yeah.
our own triggers. So how to, if I'm in the middle of a conflict, I'm probably feeling pretty emotional. What does it look like to be messy with someone else who's emotional back to me? Like, how do I hold that space?
Yeah, you do the best you can. I mean, it's one of the skills I teach in the book that you probably teach your clients is to
Mhm.
learn how to be with your experience.
Mhm.
Basic mindfulness, meditation. I need to learn how to handle my inner life, my emotions, my triggers. And if I can't, then yeah, I'm going to be kind of spilling it out all over the place and expecting you to be nice to me and not be triggered by all that messiness coming out. No, we're going to trigger each other, but can we both commit to learning how to handle our own triggers better and the other triggers better? And that requires a number of things, from meditation to good communication, better listening. There's a lot of things we can do to be able to work with what I call the scared animal. That's kind of what we're talking about here, that gets activated when we're stressed between us.
And well, when you have two scared animals trying to relate, it can be kind of hard. But that's what you mean by getting messy.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like we got two scared animals, but someone's got to be the owner of those two scared animals,
Mhm.
and like learn it, like, oh, hey, settle down there, tiger. And wow, how soon can we come back into connection? As I say also in the book, that conflict isn't necessarily the problem. It's the lack of repair that's the problem.
Oh, interesting. So, what does repair look like?
Yeah. So there's a cycle I call the conflict repair cycle that's going to go on for the rest of your life if you want good relationships. And basically, it's a circle, and it involves three parts. There's connection, when we feel connected to each other. Then, boom, there's a stress, there's a rupture, something happens, there's a disconnection. We're now disconnected from each other. And then our work is to get connected again, and that's the reconnection part. So, reconnection involves repair, and repair involves, just think of like a medic or something, that we need to make it better. And so, repairing involves owning my part, listening to you until you feel understood, getting on the same page about what we're fighting about, and coming up with a plan after we're cool. Like, gosh, what's our agreement that if we get into this place again, how are we going to handle it? Because we're going to get into this place again.
Yeah, yeah. It will happen. Don't think
Totally.
it won't.
Yeah. So repair is vital. I mean, Ed Tronick, his research on the still face experiment basically proved that it's not about, again, the mom being connected to the baby all the time and they're in perfect connection. And somehow that's a good mother. It has nothing to do with that. It's all about how quickly can the mother and the baby come back into connection. And particularly it's the adult's job, right? And in a mutual adult partnership, it's both parties' job. How can we make it right again? How can we make it okay again so that we're at what I call zero, which is the place where we feel connected again?
Hmm. Yeah, the still face experiment is actually a pretty dramatic demonstration of what happens with disconnection and then reconnection. Can you
Yeah.
describe that for the listeners who haven't seen those
Oh
videos?
yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And it's cool if you just Google, this on YouTube. You can just
Mhm.
type in "still face experiment" and you'll see the video. Um, it's a mother who is basically kind of playing with the baby. The baby's probably, I don't know, 8 months old or something, and the baby's in a chair, and the mother's like being playful, and they're having this really beautiful exchange between the two of them. And then the experimenter, the researcher, is basically saying, "Okay, mom, now turn away from the baby and let's watch what happens." So everything's going well, and they're very connected. And then the mom just kind of turns away, um, and she comes back, and she has a still face. And a still face is like a flat affect, like no emotion. And then the baby starts getting dysregulated because it's trying to find where's mom, where's mom, where's mom. And the baby gets more and more upset the longer mom holds the still face, to the point where pretty soon the baby's like reaching and screaming and then eventually crying. And then the mom, can barely stand it, of course.
Right,
And
right.
then they have the mom come back and go, okay, it's okay. I'm here. I'm back. And then the baby within seconds is back. They're back to a good place again.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if those ruptures, that was like a disconnection, right? Or a rupture. If mom doesn't turn back because she's on her phone all the time, or she's an alcoholic, or she's just too busy because she's managing 3 other kids, that baby gets dysregulated and then learns that relationships are not reliable. And I can't trust that I'm going to be okay in this relationship. So I'm going to have to figure this out on my own, which is really a bummer to set our kids up long term for an adult life where that's how we feel about relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. And you, because when you watch that, not only is it really distressing, you can just feel the distress on that child's
Oh, yeah,
behalf,
it's
but
heartbreaking.
um, you also, I think we can all also, most of us can relate to that because maybe we've had these experiences of feeling disconnected, even if it's not as dramatic as what happened in the video. We've all had that experience, and so that
Yeah.
reconnection is important. I agree
Yeah.
totally. Yeah.
Vital. Yeah. To just
Yeah.
come back to say, I'm here, I'm here again. And how many people don't have a partner like that they don't come back and say, I'm here. They come back annoyed, like, why are you not over this? Kind of blamey,
Right. Yeah.
which is a huge
Totally.
bummer. So we want to choose partners that come back and say, I'm here and I want to make this right again.
Right. Um, do you work with couples around how to do that? Sometimes we end up in relationships with people who aren't good at that.
Yeah.
And so we want to try to introduce that into a relationship that's been around for a while.
Yeah, totally. We teach individuals and couples basically how to work through conflict and how to get to zero. And one of our favorite tools, if you want me to share it, I'm happy to,
Mhm.
is called LUFU, and it's a listening tool, and it's stands for listen until they feel understood, LUFU.
Okay.
And that was a rule I sort of set for my wife after being defensive for years when she'd say, I don't feel understood. And I'd say, yeah, I do. I'm understanding you just fine, which is so like dumb. it's like, it's like, wow, you want to fight some more? Okay.
Right. Right.
So I finally was like, I think I want to get smarter here. I think I want a new rule for myself, which is I don't understand her until she tells me she feels understood. And then I'm like, and then we got it. And then I'm cool. So LUFU involves 8 steps, and I don't need to go through maybe all 8, but essentially the steps are things like reflecting back what I heard, validating their experience with like, that makes sense, those 3 words, some empathy, an empathy comment, taking responsibility, owning our part, that's essentially, more or less the process without walking through it,
Mhm.
so that the other person basically feels understood and they start to relax. And they're like, thank you. Usually if you get this right, the other person's like, yeah, they nod their head and they're like, thanks.
Right.
It
And then,
softens them.
yeah, yeah, they do often visibly relax, and the tone goes down in their voice and the
Yeah.
argument goes out. Like,
Right.
it's
Right.
just,
Now they're like, what are we mad about? I can't
yeah,
forget, because
right.
now you really just got me and that feels good. And then now I'm available to listen to you. Right.
Hmm. Hmm. I really like that because so often we feel like we understand. We know what's going on. We don't understand that it's an assumption we're making.
Totally.
And if you're arguing over whether or not somebody feels understood, there's really no argument there. They either feel understood or they don't. You don't argue with their feelings, but we think we hear what they're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's through our filters. Right. And
Yeah.
so that's why the rule is like until they feel understood. And I think an important reminder here is that everybody's experience is 100% valid. Some people get stuck on right and wrong. Well, that's not right. That's not what I said. I wouldn't waste your time fighting in that kind of way. It goes nowhere. I mean, when I get stuck in that still, I'm like, why did I just get stuck? I got caught in the right and wrong thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, no, that's a losing game. The winning game is, all right, your experience is valid. My experience is valid. Let's do our best to understand each other's different experience.
Mm.
And then we can try to find a way forward here.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so important. I've had a number of clients over the years who can't understand that their partner can have an experience that differs from theirs and it still be a valid, true experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
totally.
so I end up having to work with them around, okay, it's not that you're right or wrong, it's that it's different
Yeah.
and it's still valid. There's not
Yeah.
one truth with a capital T.
And that's so hard for people to get though, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh,
simple in like concept, but for
concept.
some people it's like a major leap.
Right. Right. Absolutely. To me, it sort of gets back to some people approach the world as a right, wrong, up, down
Yeah. Yeah.
approach, and other people they're less hierarchical that way, or I don't know
Yeah.
quite how to describe that. So I think the people who are more, I'm right, you're wrong, there's, it's a zero sum game. And if you win, I lose.
Yeah.
They struggle with that a lot more.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Um, in all your work with people, have you come up with some common types of arguments that people have?
Yeah, I've labeled this as in my experience, and there's probably, hundreds more, but the ones I've seen, I like to categorize them into 5 categories.
Mhm.
There's surface fights, there's projection fights, there's resentment fights, there's security fights, and there's one more, right? That's 4.
Yeah, I always do that.
Um, I can't remember what the other one was,
Okay.
but yeah, I think categorizing these can help people, because some people get stuck in the dishes or the sink or what happened at drop off with the kids or something, and it's really not about that.
Mhm.
But that's where they're caught, and
Mhm.
usually it's like, if the charge doesn't match the situation, in other words, the charge is bigger than some little innocuous eye roll or some look or a tone of voice, there's a historical thing there, and it's often a resentment.
Okay. Okay. So that's resentment.
Or
Um,
value fights. That was the other one.
oh,
So we fight
value.
about our values, right? You want to live by the ocean. I want to live in the mountains. You are Republican. I'm Democrat.
Right. Right. Yeah. Okay. Um, so being able to recognize each one. So surface fights are like, what's the difference between a surface fight and a resentment fight?
So a surface fight, we usually don't call it a resentment because there is a resentment there. It's like, if you imagine like the surface of some water, we're fighting about what's on the top of the water, but really there's a artery going down to a resentment that hasn't been addressed. So the surface is fighting things about dropping the kids off or the dishes or, an eye roll or something. But if you're like, wow, why did you just react? Geez, I just, whatever. And then we start fighting about that. Usually that's a resentment. So a surface fight uncovers a resentment.
Okay. But if we stick to whether or not you're going to pick up the kids, that stays at the surface. If we then say, well, you never help out, then we're getting to
Now yeah, exactly. The always never language is a sign of a resentment.
yeah, never and always.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So what would a projection fight look like?
That's a little trickier if you're psychologically savvy, so you understand projection. But when I first partnered with my wife, some of our fights and some of the fights still, I perceive her. There's familiarity around my parents, and so I'll project some kind of negative experience I had with my mom or dad onto my wife. So, for example, if my wife goes silent and she shuts down or goes inward, right? That can trigger me because that's what my mom did.
Right.
When my mom and I were in a snag, sometimes my mom would go silent and she would have, the look on her face was very activating for me and made me anxious as a little kid. So I can project easily that onto my wife, right? And then all of a sudden I'm activated. And she really didn't do anything. She just like got quiet. But I'm over here pretty upset.
Right. Right. And you're probably struggling with, well, I feel like doing this, but I know that's not worked in the past. So then I can try that, but I've tried that and that doesn't work either. And the emotional like turmoil that can happen in those situations can make you feel like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Helpless or overwhelmed, or
Yeah.
some of us who have more kind of insecure, anxious attachment styles,
Hmm.
and we're more, we get like, I describe two types of threat. One is too close, someone's too close to us, and one is someone's too far away from us. Both are threatening to us, social mammals. And often as humans, we have one or the other going on. So I might have more of a trigger around people pulling away from me, and you might have more of a trigger of people getting in your space, let's say.
Hmm.
And as couples or as friends or whatever, we have to navigate that.
Right. And I can also imagine the scenario where one person's comfortable having somebody so close and the other person is comfortable being a lot closer.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's
And
like,
that's
how
how
do
it works. And then we're like, how are we going to deal with this?
right, right, right. That's kind of similar to the conversation about how often do we have sex,
Yeah.
right? Like somebody wants it
Yeah,
more often than the other. It's just the way it's going to be.
totally. And people think these are deal breakers. Like, oh my God, so he never wants sex. I always want sex. Or she always is distant and I'm always wanting connection. That's never going to work. And it's like, no, that's a relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
How are you two going to navigate that? That's not a problem. That's just how relationships are.
Yeah. Yeah. I also feel like a lot of that conversation about, oh, is this relationship going to work, is really all of this future orientation. And we have to make it work today. Not,
Nice. I like that. Yeah.
yeah, sure. We want to stay in this relationship, ideally forever, but today we have to make it work. And so we go through the fights. We have security fights or value fights or projection fights, and we figure them out and we figure out how to deal with them. And once we have a fight, according to your circle, we need to figure out how to reconnect. But sometimes that doesn't go very well. It's hard. What are some of
Yeah.
the things that block that process?
Probably the biggest one is a fantasy that we shouldn't be having a fight at all. The next one is we don't know how because we never learned.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two of the biggest ones. And then with the scared animal, it's often very uncomfortable to try to reconcile with someone that we're in disconnection with, that we have a snag with. It's just like, man, it feels steep. Everything in my body is saying, don't go near that person. I feel very threatened. And the last thing in the world I want to do is talk to them or even look at them. I'm like disgusted when I look at them. I want to throw things at them, or I feel scared when I look at them. I feel like I'm going to get hurt. All of this stuff comes up for us, and we have to work with that part of ourselves. And if we're with a good human being, a good person, we don't have to take any of those stories seriously. If they haven't actually hit us or pulled a gun out on us or done something really egregious, and we look back on our experience and like, actually they've been pretty good to me, then I don't need to take all that just fear so seriously. And I got to start pushing through that.
Oh, so I'm scared and I don't want to interact with them, but I need to be able to talk to myself and say, okay, well, you're more scared than this person actually is scary.
Yeah. You usually in a quote normal relationship,
Right.
not an abusive relationship. I'm not talking about that.
Right.
A normal relationship, it's like the person's not out to get me.
Right.
They just aren't. So why do I need to keep making up stories about how they're so mean and bad and wrong? What if I became the bigger person here and I reached through that resistance and I extended a hand to them? I mean, one of the greatest things my wife and I do for each other is, and sometimes it's her and sometimes it's me, is if we're in that place of like fear and just crunchiness, one of us just pushes ourselves to just reach for the other person, like reach through the resistance, put a hand on a shoulder or come up close and grab a hand, stand next to each other and rub the back. Any of those kind of gestures are basically saying, I'm safe,
Mm-hmm.
and it's okay. Your scared animal can calm down now because I'm calming down, and I don't want to be in this kind of dance with you. I'd rather be calm, and I'm going to initiate that.
I like that. One of the things I recommend to my clients on a regular basis, whether you're fighting or not, is to hug your partner because hugging creates a bond.
Yeah.
And what I'm imagining with this reaching out and working through or breaking through that fear, it's a process that would facilitate you getting to a place where having a hug might be imaginable.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
the
totally.
first step there. Yeah.
Yeah. And we each have to decide what's the realistic baby step that I can do, because a hug might be too big for
Me
some
too.
people, but it
Yeah.
might be just right for others, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yeah, what would work? And then we don't want to ask the question, what would it feel authentic? Because what would feel authentic is to like push them away and walk out the door. So we have to not take that voice so seriously either. And it's like, there's a bigger self in here somewhere. There's an adult in here that actually wants to be in a better place. So the adult in me is going to really reach out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you say more about being authentic? Because that's one of the things I think we struggle with. What does that mean?
I know,
Be
right?
authentic, right? Because we want to
Yeah.
be authentic.
Yeah. Well, the trick with authenticity is we all think we're being authentic most of the time. But I like to, if you're really into personal growth and development, you can kind of see through that pretty quick. When I'm in strategy versus when I'm what I call being myself, or being true to myself, or being my true self. And that just means I feel in integrity with myself. My words match my actions, and that they match my body language. And I feel congruent, right? And it's like kids see through this shit all the time with parents. If parents say one thing but do another, kids are like, that's bullshit. And
Oh, yeah.
teenagers hate this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And grown-ups.
Yes.
And they should. It's not cool to be kind of a hypocrite like that, or to be two-faced or whatever. But yet we all need strategies. We need to kind of put on a mask sometimes at the gathering or the family thing, just to be nice, and then we can kind of leave and be like, oh, that was not fun. Right? It has a place. So I'm not saying I'm not into the like authenticity 100% of the time, because I just don't think it's realistic or possible.
Right.
And so it's gradations, right? It's like, I'm going to be authentic, but I'm also going to hold back, because I don't want to be who I really am in this environment, because I might get shamed,
Mm-hmm.
right? I might get my job. I might lose my job. I might lose this date. So I don't want to totally reveal all my baggage on the third date. So I'm going to hold back, And it's not necessarily being inauthentic. It's just, trying to be kind with oneself. But I take a massive stand for being fully revealed in an intimate partnership as soon as you can, because if you wait, the longer you wait, and the stakes get higher as you join houses and mortgages and kids, if you start adding a lot of stuff into that and you haven't revealed who you really are, and then you start revealing who you really are, that can create really big problems.
Yeah. Yeah. But reveal deeper. The more you want to reveal, the more intimate the relationship needs to be. You're not going to reveal your deepest, darkest secrets to your neighbor.
Totally.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That so reminds me of Brene Brown talking about, you share your story with the people who've earned the right to hear it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got it. You nailed it. Yeah. That's so spot on.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because that revealing some of that deeper stuff does create a vulnerability between you and your partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're not able to do that in your closest relationship, that's a problem.
Yes. Yes. So either figure out how to do that, or maybe you're not going to be able to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Might be moving on time.
Yeah. Might be moving on time. Sometimes we get into kind of a victim status. And I know you talk about victim versus author mindset. What can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, totally. So when I get hurt in my life, I depending on the kind of hurt it is, and it can be around money, it can be around like physical body, it can be with my wife, it can be in my business, whatever. When I get hurt and something stings, and it could be comparing myself to someone else too, I fall into a victim position, and I call it the valley of victimhood. And it's just like a V, where I'm down at the bottom of the valley and I can't see very well, because I'm just kind of stuck in my problem. Woe is me. And that's appropriate for a little while. Like it's just the place we go to when we fall down or get hurt. ow, someone hurt me. This sucks. You did it. You're wrong. I want someone to help me. So we start to set up the triangle, right?
Mhm.
Victim, rescuer, perpetrator, victim, villain, rescuer. And that's, again, appropriate. But I'm into, as soon as possible, flipping the triangle upside down so it turns into an A, and the rescuers become supporters, and the villains become challengers, which I need to be the author. I need to grow in life and to actually be empowered. And so life, I think, is a process of falling down, going into my victim place, getting back up, becoming an author. And ideally, the curve moves up and to the right, right? The jagged sort of mountaintop valley. If I stay stuck and it's horizontal, then again, maybe I'm not figuring something out.
Yeah. Right.
But I think we all go to this place, especially in conflict, but it's how soon can I take responsibility? That's probably the fastest way out of the victim seat, and to become what I call a relational leader, who's the person that raises their hand and says, I will own my part here, and I'm not going to blame you. I'm going to own my part. And I, again, become an adult, move to authorship.
That sounds a little bit like the process that you might have gone through when I'm going to circle back around to the story you told about your wife, when she says, you don't understand me. And you're thinking, well, of course I understand you.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I? And taking responsibility for that dynamic. That's what that sounds like to me.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, my life changed at age 29 when I was in 9 years of failed relationships, blaming the woman every time and not taking any responsibility. And I felt very empowered, but deep down, actually, I was a victim because my finger was pointing outward.
Uh-huh.
And now some people can point it inward, but that ain't personal responsibility. That's self-blame. So there's a big difference between personal responsibility and blaming oneself. I'm not talking about blaming oneself. I'm talking about, I have a part and here it is, right? And I finally realized I was the problem in all my relationship dynamics. And that was great. It was empowering because I could now do something about it. If I'm the problem, I can fix it, right?
Right. I often talk with people about the two parts to self-criticism, which could be self-blame, right? And there's the assessment of what is going wrong, and then the judgment about what that means about yourself.
Right.
And what we want is to be able to have a clear-eyed assessment of what just happened and our role in it, without all of that judging, blaming language that kind of often naturally just comes along with it.
Yes,
So
exactly. And if what's tricky here is if you're partnered with someone who won't take responsibility and continues to blame you, you can start to feel crazy. Like, wait, what's my part and what's not my part? And then you end up overly taking too much responsibility, and the other person's not doing anything.
right.
That's not good either, you know?
Yeah, that's tricky. I have had lots of conversations about what's your responsibility here and where does it end, because a lot of people take too much responsibility.
Yeah.
And
And I encourage people in those moments, you got to break down what happened. And get feedback from a trusted source so that you can start to see more clearly. Because sometimes we just don't trust ourselves, right? And we grew up in a family where we were blamed all the time. And so part of the work becomes being able to discern, like you're saying, see clearly and trust ourselves.
Yeah, it's like, I think you just can't see the forest for the trees. You're just too in it. Or you can't see it when you're in the middle of the valley, right? And
that's right. I mean, that's the valley of victimhood.
Yeah, exactly. Your book is called Getting to Zero. What do you mean by zero?
Zero is the happy place when we feel connected and good again after a conflict, or just in our everyday lives. Like, we can go days and we're cool. We're kind of in the zone. This feels great. And then boom, something happens and our number goes from 0 up to 10, anywhere up to 10. And that can be a fun way to educate yourself and your partner, your other person, family member, whoever it is, where you're at on that trigger scale. So ideally, let's say I'm a 5 and you're a 6 and we're in a fight. Honey, I'm a 5, like I'm a 6. Whoa, okay, I got to calm down. We need to somehow find our way back to 0. And if people get hung up on the word 0, it's find your own word. But it's just a place where we want to get to. It's our baseline where we feel good again. That's 0.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I like that. And I like that there's a gradation there, because I can imagine that if you've gotten your feathers ruffled by something that your partner did, you might be at a 1 or a 2 and they're blissfully at a 0, not understanding that anything
Totally.
just happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So,
right. And that can be okay in some families and some marriages and some business partnerships. It's fine. But again, it's like, and the other trick here is some people think they're at baseline, their 0 is, which maybe according to me is like actually a 5, because it's the water they swim in all day. They're under a lot of stress in life and in relationships, and they've never experienced a true 0. So that's okay too. You just have to find out, like, am I okay living at a 5? Or that's probably unrealistic, but I wouldn't recommend that. But maybe I could live at a 3 and I could call that my 0. That's okay if you can live like that. I would rather live with less stress in my life personally.
yeah. Yeah. I'm always looking, personally, always looking for that. Where can I find these areas of
Right?
peace where I'm not, out there, and I'm not responsible for this hour for
Yeah.
everybody else. And yeah.
Yeah. We're all dealing with so much stress these days. And with COVID, it's added a huge another layer that we're all navigating. And so all the more reason to get to a good place in our primary relationships.
Yeah, totally. Have you found that being um, at home with your family more has deepened your relationships or
Um,
caused more conflict? Like, what do you think's the impact of that has been?
I think probably two things have happened. One is more conflict. I
Mhm.
think that's true. Not big conflicts, but I think the added layer of stress I was just talking about can make everyone in our family, a little more sensitive. So that can create a little more conflict. And at the same time, I'd say we're closer
Mhm. Oh,
as
okay.
a family.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, we've gone through so much together with the kids in school, and just their ups and downs and our ups and downs through all of it, and then not being that social, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So
I don't think there's been an escape valve for a lot of people
right,
until this summer,
no,
right?
I know, and if you don't live near nature, man, it's
Yeah.
difficult, and we fortunately do. And we had recently in our summer, we took a lot of family trips, so I feel like we are very connected and have a really strong family vibe right now.
Good, good. Um, do you want to tell people how they can find you?
Yeah, sure. Um, it's relationshipschool.com. No, just relationshipschool.com. And there you can find the podcast. We have hundreds of interviews there, really fun, engaging conversations. My wife and I a lot. And then the book is at gettingtozerobook.com, or, if you want to pre-order it, depending on when this comes out and if it's out, you can order it on Amazon, of course, Barnes and Noble, all the fun places.
I think when people watch this, the book, doesn't the book come out in early October?
October 5th.
5th. Yeah. Okay. So they'll be able to pre-order it and get it in early October.
Yeah, and there's some goodies on the gettingtozerobook.com. There's some fun videos and stuff that you can get if you pre-order it.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah.
And you're giving participants in the summit a little preview of the book.
Okay.
You're going to give them the first chapter.
I think that's right.
Yes.
Yeah. And I just was reading the audiobook this morning, actually, first
Oh,
chapter. And
yeah.
there's a fun story in there about me in 6th grade. So hopefully I put a lot of personal narrative in it. Actually, the editor was like, you got to cut some of your story out here. Talking about yourself too much. I just love to teach through story, and I have an interesting life, so I like sharing it, but
Yeah.
it was good to diversify too.
Yeah. No, totally. Well, we relate to stories so well,
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, this has been really informative interview. I'm sure people who watch this will get a lot out of it. Thank you for taking the time to do the interview today.
Yeah. Thanks, Julie. It's been fun. I appreciate it.